Picture this, a glittering gala, chandeliers casting a golden glow, and me, Ava Thompson, standing in a designer gown, thinking I'd finally earned my place. Then, my mother-in-law, Margaret, drunk on champagne and venom, screams across the room, "You're illiterate garbage who trapped my son. Get out." The silence that followed was deafening. Every guest froze, forks mid-air, as her words sliced through my heart. That night, I didn't just walk out of her Shaker Heights mansion, I walked away from years of her insults and built a $15 million empire from the ashes of her cruelty. I'm Ava Thompson, and this is how I turned her hate into my beachfront paradise in Malibu. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll see how I traded her venom for victory, and you'll want to share this story with everyone you know. Drop your city in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to someone who tried to tear you down. I grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, in a trailer home that rattled in the wind, where my parents worked 16-hour days just to keep the lights on. Dad hauled steel at the mill, Mom scrubbed offices till her hands cracked, but they taught me one thing: hustle is worth more than handouts. At 16, I was selling custom t-shirts at school, scraping together $50 a week from my lunch money. It wasn't much, but it lit a fire in me, a fire that no one, not even Margaret's icy glares, could extinguish. When I met Noah, my high school sweetheart, in biology class, he saw me, not the girl in thrift store jeans. He was from Shaker Heights, born into wealth, but he believed in my dreams even when his mother sneered, "Your father's a factory worker," like it was a crime. That was just the beginning of her war against me, a war I didn't know I'd have to fight for 7 years. But here's the kicker: every jab she threw made me stronger, and every doubt she planted pushed me to build StorySpark, a company that signed Nike and changed marketing forever. This video isn't just my story, it's a battle cry for anyone who's been called less than. Comment below, have you ever been underestimated? Let's start this journey together. I grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, where the winters were as harsh as the whispers of a small town that never lets you forget where you came from. Our trailer home was a patchwork of dreams and desperation, tucked behind a sagging chain-link fence. The walls were so thin you could hear the neighbors' fights, and the air always carried the faint sting of bleach from Mom's cleaning supplies. Dad worked the graveyard shift at the steel mill, his hands calloused and his eyes heavy with exhaustion, while Mom scrubbed corporate offices in Cleveland until dawn, her knees bruised but her pride unbroken. They poured every dime into keeping me fed and clothed, but new sneakers or trendy backpacks, those were luxuries we couldn't touch. Instead, I learned to make do, stitching patches onto jeans and turning hand-me-downs into something I could wear with my head high. That grit, it's what shaped me, long before I knew it would carry me to a $15 million empire. At 16, I discovered a spark that changed everything. I'd always been restless, doodling designs in the margins of my math notebook, dreaming of a life bigger than Mansfield's rusted factories. One day, I borrowed Mom's sewing kit and started making custom t-shirts, painting bold slogans like "Rise Up" and "Fearless" with cheap fabric dye. I sold them at school, sneaking into the cafeteria with a backpack stuffed full, trading shirts for crumpled dollar bills. $50 a week wasn't much, but to me, it was freedom, a taste of what I could build if I didn't quit. Kids started wearing my shirts to football games, and for the first time, I felt seen, not as the trailer park girl, but as someone with something to say. But Mansfield wasn't kind to dreamers. Classmates snickered, calling my shirts poor girl crafts, and teachers warned me to focus on realistic goals. I ignored them, but the sting lingered, fueling a quiet fire to prove them wrong. Then came Noah Bennett, the boy who turned my world upside down. It was junior year, biology class, and I was dreading group projects. Nobody wanted to pair with the girl who smelled faintly of thrift store detergent. When Mr. Larson called out, "Ava Thompson and Noah Bennett," I braced for disappointment. Noah was Shaker Heights royalty, wavy dark hair, a BMW parked in the student lot, and a smile that could charm anyone. I expected him to roll his eyes, but instead, he slid into the seat next to me and said, "You're the t-shirt girl, right? Those designs are legit." I froze, my cheeks burning. No one from his world had ever noticed me, let alone called my work legit. We were opposites. He grew up with ski trips and private tutors. I grew up counting quarters for laundry, but something clicked. He was patient when I fumbled through lab notes, and I was fearless when we had to dissect frogs. Our late-night study sessions turned into talks about dreams, his to break free from his family's expectations, mine to build something no one could take away. Noah's world was a different kind of battlefield. The first time I visited his Shaker Heights home, I felt like an intruder. Their mansion sprawled across a manicured lawn, with marble floors and a foyer bigger than our trailer. Margaret Bennett greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her voice dripping with judgment. "Ava, how quaint that your father works at the mill." Her words were a blade, sharp and deliberate, meant to remind me I didn't belong. Noah's father, William, was kinder, asking about my t-shirts with genuine curiosity, but Margaret's presence loomed like a storm cloud. She'd interrupt to boast about Noah's Ivy League future, her gaze flicking to me as if I were a temporary distraction. Noah squeezed my hand under the table, his silent promise that he saw me differently. But even then, I sensed the war ahead, a war not just with Margaret, but with a world that measured worth by bank accounts and diplomas. Our love grew in stolen moments, milkshakes at the diner where Mom sometimes waitressed, stargazing in his beat-up pickup to escape his mother's watchful eye. Noah never cared that I couldn't afford prom dresses or college applications. "You're going to change the world, Ava," he'd say, his voice steady with a belief I hadn't yet found in myself. But Margaret's shadow stretched longer as we got closer. At a family barbecue, she cornered me by the pool, her voice low and cutting. "Noah deserves someone who can keep up with his future, not hold him back." I swallowed hard, my fists clenched, but I didn't reply. I couldn't, not yet. Instead, I poured that pain into my hustle, sketching new designs late into the night, vowing to build a life where no one could make me feel small again. That promise, born in the ashes of her words, would lead me to StorySpark, and to a showdown that would change everything. Want to know how I turned that pain into power? Keep watching, and let me know in the comments, what's the first dream you ever chased? After high school, while Noah headed to Ohio State University with a full scholarship and his mother's dreams of him becoming a Wall Street star, I stayed in Mansfield, Ohio, determined to build my own path. The trailer home was quieter now, with Mom and Dad still grinding through their endless shifts, but their sacrifices fueled my hunger to make it big. I wasn't have a college degree or a trust fund, but I had grit, a fire in my belly that no one could snuff out. At 19, I took a leap into the unknown, pouring every penny I'd earned from t-shirt sales into a dream bigger than me myself, a digital marketing startup called StorySpark. My office was my parents' basement, a damp corner with flickering lights, where I taught myself coding and graphic design through grainy YouTube tutorials. I'd work until 3 a.m., fueled by instant ramen and a vision of turning small businesses into household names. My first client was a local bakery, desperate to compete with chain stores. I crafted a social media campaign showcasing their family recipes, and when their sales spiked 20% in a month, I felt invincible, like I could rewrite my future with every click. But startups aren't fairy tales, and my journey was littered with failures that tested my soul. My second client, a pet store, dropped me when I couldn't outpace a bigger agency's budget. Then, at 21, I launched an online boutique selling curated vintage clothing, sinking $5,000, every cent I'd saved, into inventory and a clunky website. For a moment, it felt like I was flying, orders trickled in, and I dreamed of quitting my part-time retail job. But shipping costs ate my profits, and a glitchy site crashed during a holiday sale, losing half my orders. Customers flooded my inbox with complaints, and I spent sleepless nights refunding money I didn't have. One night, alone in the basement, staring at a bank account with $12.47, I broke down, tears soaking my keyboard. Maybe Margaret's right, I whispered to the darkness. Maybe I'm chasing pipe dreams. The weight of my parents' sacrifices, the town's whispers, and my own doubts threatened to crush me. But giving up wasn't in my blood. I wiped my face, rebooted my laptop, and started again, promising myself I'd learn from every bruise. Noah was my anchor through the storm. He'd drive 6 hours from Columbus on weekends, bringing cheap coffee and his unshakable faith in me. One night, after the boutique fiasco, he found me curled up in the basement, surrounded by unsold clothes. "Ava, you're not failing, you're learning," he said, pulling me into his arms. "Every successful person gets knocked down. You're tougher than they are." He built a rickety desk from scrap wood for my workspace, calling it the future CEO's command center. His belief was a lifeline, but it couldn't shield me from the growing tension with his family. Margaret Bennett's disdain had sharpened since high school, her every word a reminder that I wasn't good enough for her golden son. At Noah's college graduation party in Shaker Heights, she pulled me aside in her pristine kitchen, her diamond earrings glinting like daggers. "Ava, dear, have you considered a stable job?" she asked, her smile as cold as the marble counter. "These little ventures of yours, they're charming, but Noah needs a partner with prospects." I clenched my jaw, forcing a nod, but inside, I was screaming. Her words weren't just a jab, they were a declaration of war. The conflict escalated at a family 4th of July barbecue, where Margaret's passive-aggressive barbs became a public spectacle. The Bennett's sprawling backyard was filled with Shaker Heights elite, sipping rose under string lights. Noah, proud of my bakery campaign, mentioned it to a guest, saying, "Ava's changing how small businesses grow." Margaret, overhearing, laughed, a sharp, cutting sound that silenced nearby chatter. "Oh, Noah, let's not exaggerate," she said, her voice loud enough to draw eyes. "Ava's playing with social media, but it's hardly a career. Perhaps community college could give her some real credentials." The air grew thick with awkwardness as guests shifted uncomfortably. Noah's face reddened, but before he could speak, I stepped forward, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Actually, Margaret, my playing just saved a family business from closing. Not bad for a hobby." Her smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, waving a hand dismissively. "Well, it's a start, I suppose." Noah squeezed my hand, whispering, "You killed it," but the damage was done. I felt every stare, every whispered judgment, branding me as the outsider who dared to dream too big. That barbecue wasn't just a moment, it was a turning point. Margaret's public humiliation ignited a defiance I hadn't known I possessed. I returned to my basement office with a vengeance, diving deeper into marketing strategies, studying consumer psychology through free online courses, and cold emailing businesses across Ohio. By 23, I landed a contract with a regional coffee chain, creating a campaign that tripled their Instagram followers in 6 weeks. Story Spark was no longer a pipe dream, it was a spark catching fire. But every win came with a cost. Margaret's comments grew bolder, her disapproval a constant undercurrent at family gatherings. At a Christmas dinner, she gifted me a book on career paths for non-graduates, saying, "I thought it might inspire you, Ava." Noah snapped, "Mom, enough," but her smug smile told me she'd never stop. I swallowed my anger, vowing to let my success speak louder than her insults. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come, a showdown that would push me to my breaking point. Want to see how I turn Margaret's venom into fuel for my empire? Keep watching, and drop in the comments, what's the toughest setback you've faced in chasing your dream? By age 25, Story Spark wasn't just a flicker in my parents' basement anymore, it was a roaring blaze. I'd moved the operation to a sleek loft office in downtown Cleveland, with a team of 8 hustlers who believed in my vision as fiercely as I did. Our campaigns were game changers, blending raw, emotional storytelling with razor-sharp strategy. One post for a struggling local gym went viral, racking up 1 million views and doubling their memberships in a month. That win caught the eye of bigger players, and soon, we were signing contracts with national brands. The pinnacle came when Nike tapped us for a regional campaign targeting Gen Z. I poured my soul into it, crafting ads that celebrated underdog athletes, kids like me who'd never had a silver spoon. When Nike's sales surged 40% in our markets, the industry took notice. StorySpark hit a $15 million valuation, and I was fielding calls from Forbes and Inc. magazine. At home, Noah and I celebrated with a bottle of champagne we could finally afford, toasting in our new Craftsman-style house in Lakewood, bought with cash from my earnings. I'd paid off Sophie's grad school loans and covered Lucas's $80,000 heart surgery bills, acts of love for Noah's siblings that felt like my way of building a bridge with his family. But bridges, I learned, can burn. Margaret Bennett's resentment didn't just simmer, it boiled over. She couldn't stomach that the trailer park girl was outshining her carefully curated world. Her barbs, once cloaked in polite condescension, now carried a venom that stung deeper with every encounter. At a charity gala in Shaker Heights, where I was invited as a guest speaker, I shared StorySpark's mission to amplify untold stories. The crowd gave a standing ovation, and Noah beamed, whispering, "You're unstoppable." But Margaret, seated at a front table, sipped her wine with a smirk that screamed disapproval. Later, as guests mingled, she sidled up to me, her voice low but laced with malice. "Your little TikTok stunts are cute, Ava, but don't fool yourself into thinking they're real business. Flashy trends fade." I forced a smile, my nails digging into my palms. "Nike seems to disagree, Margaret. So does my bank account." Her eyes narrowed, but she turned away, leaving a chill that lingered longer than the applause. Noah apologized later, but I waved it off, my resolve hardening. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting for every kid who'd been told their dreams were too loud. The tension wasn't just verbal, it bled into every corner of our lives. I'd grown so successful that I started covering unexpected family expenses, a gesture meant to ease Noah's stress from his corporate job. When his parents' yacht club dues spiked, I paid the $12,000 fee without blinking, knowing their investments had taken a hit. I funded Sophie's $15,000 art exhibit in Chicago, helping her career take off, and I even sent Noah's cousins to summer camp when their parents struggled. Each act was met with Margaret's disdain. At a family brunch, she leaned across the table, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Ava, you're so generous with your new money. Trying to buy our affection." The room went quiet, forks pausing mid-bite. Sophie shifted uncomfortably, and Lucas avoided my gaze. Noah snapped, "Mom, she's family, not a bank." But Margaret just shrugged, her smile ablaze. "I'm only saying, dear, charity doesn't erase one's roots." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "My roots are why I'm here, Margaret. They're stronger than your insults." Noah squeezed my knee, but the weight of her words clung to me like damp Cleveland fog. The breaking point loomed closer at a family wedding in Columbus, where Margaret's hostility turned into a calculated performance. As I chatted with guests about StorySpark's Nike campaign, she interrupted, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "Ava's social media hobby is quite the talk, isn't it? Though I wonder how long these internet fads last before people want real expertise." The crowd fell silent, eyes darting between us. My heart pounded, but I met her gaze. "Long enough to sign multi-million-dollar deals, Margaret. Expertise comes from results, not pedigrees." A few guests nodded, but her laugh, sharp and dismissive, cut through the tension. "Well, you certainly have confidence, I'll give you that." Noah pulled me aside later, his face tight with anger. "She's out of line, Ava. I'll talk to her." But I shook my head, my voice low. "Talks don't change her, Noah. she's made it clear I'll never be enough. That night, as we drove back to Lakewood, a quiet resolve settled in me. I wasn't just fighting Margaret's prejudice, I was fighting for my own peace. Every jab, every sneer, fueled my drive. I doubled down on StorySpark, landing a contract with a major retailer and hiring 10 more staff. But the cost was heavy. Family dinners became minefields, with Margaret's comments sparking arguments that left Noah drained and me questioning how much more I could take. I'd built an empire, but at what price? The answer would come sooner than I expected, at a gala that would shatter everything. Want to know how Margaret's next move pushed me to my limit? Keep watching, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been judged for your success despite proving yourself? Let's dive into this together. The weeks leading up to the annual Lakeside Heights Charity Gala were a whirlwind of activity for Harper Evans. At 30, with Narrative Edge now a recognized name in digital marketing, Harper had been invited to serve as the keynote speaker at the gala, an event that drew the elite of Michigan's business and social circles. It was a milestone she hadn't anticipated, a chance to stand in the heart of the community that had once dismissed her as an outsider and share her story of resilience. Ethan, now fully integrated as Narrative Edge's Chief Operations Officer, saw the gala as a triumph, a moment for Harper to shine in front of the very people who had underestimated her, including his mother, Judith. But as the evening unfolded, it became clear that the gala would test Harper's resolve in ways she hadn't prepared for, setting the stage for the catastrophic family dinner that would soon follow. Harper had spent days refining her speech, a blend of personal anecdotes and insights into authentic storytelling in business. She wanted it to resonate not just with the wealthy donors in the room but also with the younger attendees, many of whom were aspiring entrepreneurs from backgrounds like hers. This isn't just about impressing them, she told Ethan over breakfast the morning of the gala. It's about showing that success doesn't have to look like their version of it. Ethan, sipping his coffee, grinned. You're going to blow them away. Even Mom will have to admit you belong up there. Harper raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Judith. She'll probably say I'm overreaching. Ethan's smile faltered, but he squeezed her hand. She's coming, Harper. That's a start. The Lakeside Heights Gala was held at the Grand Crystal Ballroom, a venue dripping with opulence. Marble floors, chandeliers that sparkled like constellations, and tables adorned with orchids flown in from South America. Harper arrived early, dressed in a sleek emerald green gown that hugged her frame, a far cry from the thrift store finds of her teenage years. She mingled with the organizing committee, who praised her work with Narrative Edge and expressed excitement about her speech. But as guests began to arrive, Harper felt the familiar weight of Judith's presence. Judith swept in with Walter, her silk dress shimmering under the lights, her smile as polished as ever but her eyes scanning Harper with that same critical glint Harper had endured for years. The gala began smoothly. A string quartet played softly as attendees sipped champagne and bid on silent auction items. Harper noticed Grace and Michael mingling with friends, both of them offering her warm waves from across the room. Judith, however, kept her distance, engaging in animated conversation with a group of women from her country club. Harper tried to focus on the moment, but a knot of unease tightened in her stomach. She'd learned to trust that instinct. It had guided her through business deals and personal battles alike. As the dinner portion concluded, the MC introduced Harper. The room fell silent, hundreds of eyes turning toward her as she took the stage. She began with a story from her childhood in Oak Ridge, describing the moment she sold her first beaded bracelet for $5 and felt the spark of possibility. That spark, she said, her voice steady, is what drives every entrepreneur, whether they're starting in a garage or a corner office. It's not about where you come from, it's about where you're willing to go. The audience leaned in, captivated, as she transitioned to Narrative Edge's mission of building emotional connections through storytelling. She shared data, 30% growth in client engagement, a $10 million valuation, and wove it into a narrative of perseverance. Success isn't a straight line, she concluded. It's a series of choices to keep going, even when the world tells you you don't belong. The applause was thunderous. Attendees rose to their feet, and Harper felt a rush of pride as she caught Ethan's beaming face in the crowd. Grace clapped enthusiastically, and even Walter nodded approvingly. But Judith remained seated, her hands folded in her lap, her expression unreadable. Harper stepped off the stage, greeted by a flurry of handshakes and congratulations. A local journalist pulled her aside for a quick interview, and several business owners pressed their cards into her hand, eager to discuss potential collaborations. For a moment, it felt like the world was hers. Then came the disruption. As Harper returned to her table, Judith approached, her wine glass in hand, her step slightly unsteady. The room was still buzzing, but Harper sensed the shift in energy. "That was quite a performance," Judith said, her voice loud enough to draw attention from nearby tables. "Very heartfelt." The word dripped with condescension. Harper forced a smile. "Thank you, Judith. I'm glad you enjoyed it." Judith's lips curled into a smirk. "Oh, I didn't say I enjoyed it. It's just interesting to see someone like you take center stage. All that talk about sparks and perseverance, it's a bit much, don't you think? Most people here built their success the traditional way. Degrees, connections, real credentials." The words hit like a slap, but Harper held her ground, aware of the eyes now turning toward them. "Success looks different for everyone, Judith. I'm proud of what I've built." Judith laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Proud? You're a novelty, Harper. A girl from the wrong side of town who got lucky with some internet tricks. Don't mistake applause for respect." The room seemed to hold its breath. Ethan, who had been speaking with a colleague, hurried over, his face darkening. "Mom, stop it. Now." Judith waved him off. "Oh, Ethan, don't be so sensitive. I'm just being honest. Someone needs to be." Before Harper could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. It was Clara Bennett, a prominent philanthropist and one of the gala's organizers, who had overheard the exchange. "Judith, I'm surprised," Clara said, her tone icy. Harper's speech was the highlight of the evening. Her company's work is setting a standard for innovation. "If anything, we're lucky to have her here." The crowd murmured in agreement, and Judith's face flushed a deep crimson. For the first time, Harper saw a flicker of uncertainty in her mother-in-law's eyes. Walter appeared at Judith's side, gently taking her arm. "Let's go, dear," he muttered, steering her toward the exit. Judith resisted for a moment, then relented, her departure marked by the clink of her glass on a nearby table. Harper stood frozen, her heart pounding. Ethan reached for her hand, but she pulled away, needing space to process the public humiliation. Grace and Michael approached, their faces etched with guilt. "I'm so sorry," Grace whispered. "She's out of line." Michael nodded. "We should have said something sooner." Harper appreciated their words, but they did little to ease the sting. The gala continued, but the joy of her speech had been tainted. Clara pulled Harper aside, offering a kind smile. "Don't let her dim your light," she said. "You're the real deal, and everyone here knows it." Harper nodded, but inside, she felt a storm brewing. As she and Ethan drove home that night, the silence between them was heavy. "I can't believe she did that," Ethan finally said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "In front of everyone." Harper stared out the window, the city lights blurring past. "It's not just tonight, Ethan. It's every time she gets the chance to tear me down. And you let it happen." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I didn't let it happen. I stopped her." Harper turned to him, her voice sharp. "You stopped her after she'd already humiliated me. Where were you when she started? Where's the boundary you keep promising?" Ethan had no answer, and the rest of the drive passed in tense silence. The gala disaster planted a seed of doubt in Harper's mind. She had spent years proving herself, to Ethan's family, to the world, to herself. But Judith's public attack, coupled with Ethan's delayed response, made her question how much longer she could endure the cycle of disrespect. It was a wound that would fester, leading directly to the explosive family dinner where Judith's cruelty would finally push Harper to her breaking point. For now, though, Harper retreated into her work, channeling her anger into plans for Narrative Edge's Chicago expansion. But the gala had changed something fundamental. It was the moment she began to see that her fight wasn't just against Judith, but against a system of expectations that Ethan, knowingly or not, was still tethered to. The fallout from the Lakeside Heights charity gala left Harper reeling, her triumph overshadowed by Judith's public humiliation. The sting of that night lingered, amplified by Ethan's inability to fully shield her from his mother's venom. For days, Harper threw herself into Narrative Edge's Chicago expansion, working late into the night to avoid the growing tension at home. Ethan tried to bridge the gap, promising to confront Judith, but his assurances felt hollow. Harper needed more than words, she needed action, and she needed space to reclaim her sense of self. On a crisp October morning, with the weight of unspoken decisions pressing down, Harper made an impulsive choice. She booked a one-way ticket to Malibu, California, where Narrative Edge had been offered a temporary office space for a new West Coast client pitch. This wasn't just a business trip, it was an escape. Harper didn't tell Ethan until she was at the airport, her suitcase packed with essentials and her laptop. "I need to clear my head," she said over the phone, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. "The gala, your mother, all of it, it's too much." Ethan's response was laced with panic. "Harper, don't do this. We can fix this together." "Where are you going?" She hesitated, then relented. "Malibu. For work, and for me. I'll call you when I land." She hung up before he could argue, boarding the plane with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Malibu wasn't Hawaii, but its promise of sun-soaked cliffs and crashing waves felt like a lifeline. The flight was turbulent, mirroring Harper's emotions. As the plane descended over the Pacific, she gazed at the coastline, its rugged beauty a stark contrast to Michigan's manicured suburbs. Upon landing, she rented a car and drove to a sleek, glass-walled office overlooking the ocean, where Narrative Edge's small West Coast team awaited. The client pitch, a campaign for a sustainable surf brand, was high stakes, but Harper's mind was elsewhere. She led the meeting with her usual precision, but her team noticed her distraction. "Everything okay, boss?" asked Lena, her lead strategist. Harper forced a smile. "Just a lot on my plate. Let's nail this." After the meeting, Harper checked into a modest beachside Airbnb, unable to afford the luxury of their Hawaiian home but craving the solitude of the sea. She stood on the balcony, the wind tangling her hair, and let the tears come. The gala had exposed a truth she'd avoided. No amount of success could erase Judith's contempt, and Ethan's loyalty, though genuine, was divided. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan, again." She ignored it, but a text from Grace followed. "Heard you're in Malibu. Ethan's a mess. What's going on?" Harper typed a reply, then deleted it. She wasn't ready to explain. As dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Harper walked along the beach, barefoot, the cold sand grounding her. She replayed the gala, Judith's smirk, the crowd's silence, Ethan's delayed defense. But a new thought emerged. What if she didn't return? What if Malibu, or somewhere like it, became her new beginning? The idea was reckless, intoxicating. Her phone rang again. "Ethan." This time, she answered. "Harper, please," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry I didn't stop her sooner. I'm talking to Mom tomorrow, I swear. Just come home." Harper's grip tightened on the phone. "I don't know if home feels like home anymore, Ethan. I need time. The line went silent, and then, a choked, I love you. She whispered it back, but as she hung up, the ocean's roar drowned out her doubts. Malibu wasn't the answer, but it was the spark of defiance she needed to face what came next. Harper's escape to Malibu had been a lifeline, a chance to breathe away from the suffocating weight of Judith's contempt and Ethan's wavering defenses. After 3 days of soul-searching by the Pacific, she returned to Michigan, not out of defeat but with a resolve to confront the patterns that had eroded her spirit. The gala's public humiliation and her brief retreat had clarified one thing: change had to start with her. But before she could fully articulate her new boundaries to Ethan, an unexpected ally emerged: Noah, Ethan's estranged cousin, whose dramatic intervention at a family gathering would force the Parkers to face their dysfunction head-on. It was a chilly November evening when Harper and Ethan arrived at the Parker mansion for a low-key family gathering, ostensibly to celebrate Michael's recent promotion. Harper had agreed to attend reluctantly, her Malibu epiphany still fresh. She told Ethan on the drive over, "This is the last time I walk into that house without a clear line drawn. I'm done absorbing your mother's attacks." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "I'm with you. I'll handle Mom if she steps out of line." But Harper wasn't convinced, her trust in his promises frayed by years of half-measures. The evening began deceptively calm. Judith, perhaps chastened by the gala fallout, was unusually subdued, offering Harper a curt nod instead of her usual barbed pleasantries. Walter poured wine, Grace shared stories from her design firm, and Michael basked in his career milestone. But the air crackled with unspoken tension, and Harper's instincts screamed that Judith's restraint was temporary. Then, halfway through appetizers, Noah arrived, uninvited, unshaven, and radiating defiance. Noah, a freelance journalist in his late 30s, had been a black sheep in the Parker family since he'd publicly criticized Walter's law firm for representing a controversial corporation a decade earlier. His rare appearances were met with polite disdain, especially by Judith. Tonight, he strode into the dining room, his leather jacket stark against the polished decor, and fixed his gaze on Harper. "Heard about the gala," he said, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Sounds like Aunt Judith put on quite a show." The room froze. Judith's fork clattered against her plate. "Noah, this is a private gathering," she said icily. "You weren't invited." Noah ignored her, pulling out a chair and sitting directly across from Harper. "I'm here for Harper," he said. "Someone needs to call out the hypocrisy in this family, and it's not going to be any of you." Ethan bristled. "Noah, back off. This isn't your fight." But Noah leaned forward, undeterred. "It's everyone's fight when you let your mother tear down a woman who's done more for this family than any of you deserve. Harper's paid for your sister's education, your brother's surgeries, even your damn country club dues. And you repay her with silence, or worse, insults." He turned to Judith. "Calling her uneducated trash in front of half the town. You're not just cruel, you're jealous." Judith's face contorted, a mix of rage and shame. "How dare you," she began, but Noah cut her off. "No, how dare you? Harper built a $10 million company from nothing while you've spent your life clinging to status you didn't earn. And Ethan," he pivoted, "you're complicit. You let this happen because it's easier than standing up to Mommy." Ethan stood, fists clenched. "Get out, Noah." But Harper grabbed his arm, her voice steady. "Let him finish." Noah's eyes softened as he looked at her. "You don't need their approval, Harper. You never did. Walk away before they drag you down with them." The room erupted. Judith screamed at Noah to leave, Walter tried to mediate, and Grace burst into tears, admitting she'd been too scared to confront her mother. Michael, usually reserved, slammed his hand on the table. "He's right, Mom. You've been awful to Harper, and we've all let it slide." Judith, cornered, turned her fury on Harper. This is your doing, turning my family against me. Harper stood, her voice calm but unyielding. No, Judith. You did this. I'm done being your punching bag. She walked out, the sound of Noah's chair scraping behind her as he followed. Outside, under the cold stars, Noah lit a cigarette and offered Harper a wry smile. Sorry for the drama, but someone had to say it. Harper exhaled, her breath visible in the night air. Thank you. I didn't expect any of that. Noah shrugged. Your family, whether they like it or not. Don't let them break you. As Ethan emerged, his face a storm of emotions, Harper knew Noah's stand had shifted something irreversible. The path to Hawaii, and the final confrontation with Judith, was now inevitable. Sophie, a single mother who ran a local bakery, and Lucas, a mechanic with a knack for fixing more than cars, had been Harper's anchors since high school. They'd watched her rise from selling bracelets to building Narrative Edge, cheering her on when Ethan's family dismissed her. Now, standing in her living room, their faces etched with concern, they revealed they'd heard about the gala and Noah's confrontation through Grace, who'd called Sophie in tears. We're not letting you face this alone, Sophie said, her voice fierce. Judith's been poisoning your life for years, and Ethan's not stepping up like he should. Lucas, usually the quiet one, nodded. You're family to us, Harper. If the Parkers can't see your worth, screw them. The trio moved to the kitchen, where Sophie brewed coffee and Lucas pulled out a chair, their presence grounding Harper. But the conversation took a dramatic turn when Sophie revealed a secret. Judith had cornered her at a community event months ago, warning her to keep Harper in her place and not let her get too big for her roots. Harper's jaw dropped, the betrayal cutting deeper than she'd expected. She's been trying to sabotage me outside the family, she whispered. Lucas clenched his fists. She's scared of you, Harper. You're proof her fancy world's built on nothing but hot air. Their support wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Sophie, who'd benefited from Harper's viral bakery campaign, offered to rally Oak Ridge's small business community to publicly back Narrative Edge, countering Judith's influence in Lakeside Heights. Lucas, meanwhile, proposed a bold idea: relocate Narrative Edge's headquarters to a new city, far from the Parkers' reach. Start fresh, he urged. You and Ethan deserve a life without her shadow. The suggestions lit a spark in Harper, but Ethan's arrival home interrupted the moment. His eyes widened at the sight of Sophie and Lucas, sensing their protective energy. What's going on? He asked, voice tight. Harper faced him, her friends flanking her like sentinels. They're here because they see what you don't, she said, her tone sharp. I'm done living under your mother's thumb, Ethan. Sophie and Lucas are offering me a way out. The question is, are you coming with me? The room held its breath, Ethan's silence deafening. Sophie's glare and Lucas' steady gaze amplified the stakes, pushing Harper closer to the decision that would lead her to Hawaii, and a life redefined on her terms. The town hall was held at Oak Ridge's community center, a weathered brick building where Harper had once sold bracelets as a teen. Sophie had spread the word, and Lucas had rallied his network of local tradespeople. The room buzzed with familiar faces: bakers, mechanics, shop owners, and even Harper's high school counselor, Ms. Rivera, whose daughter now worked at Narrative Edge. Harper took the stage, her emerald scarf a nod to the gala gown, and shared her journey, from a girl in thrift store clothes to a marketing innovator who'd put Oak Ridge on the map. This town taught me grit, she said, her voice resonating. Narrative Edge isn't just my company, it's a testament to what we can build together. She unveiled a new initiative, a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs, funded by her company, to ensure kids like her had a shot. The crowd erupted in applause, but the mood shifted when a familiar figure stood, Mrs. Caldwell, a Lakeside Heights socialite and Judith's close friend, who'd slipped into the back row unnoticed. This is all very inspiring, Harper, she said, her tone dripping with condescension, "but let's be honest. Your mentorship sounds like a publicity stunt to buy loyalty from a town you outgrew. Some of us wonder if you're using Oak Ridge to settle personal scores." The accusation, clearly fed by Judith, hung like a storm cloud. Whispers rippled through the room, and Harper's heart raced. She'd expected pushback, but not a public ambush. Before Harper could respond, Miss Rivera stood, her voice sharp. "Mrs. Caldwell, Harper's given more to this town than your country club ever has. My daughter's job. Her scholarship. That's Harper, not you or Judith Parker." The room roared with agreement. Sophie, eyes blazing, added, "Oak Ridge isn't your playground, ma'am. We're proud of Harper, and we'll back her any day." Lucas led a chant of "Harper. Harper," that drowned out Caldwell's flustered retort. Humiliated, she stormed out, but not before hissing, "Judith was right about you." The victory was bittersweet. As the crowd mobbed Harper with hugs and pledges to join her initiative, she felt a surge of belonging, but also dread. Judith's reach extended beyond her family, and this public defiance would provoke a reckoning. Ethan, who'd watched silently from the sidelines, approached as the event ended. "You were incredible," he said, but his eyes betrayed worry. "Mom's not going to let this go." Harper met his gaze, her resolve hardening. "Neither am I. Oak Ridge just showed me what real family looks like. I'm ready for whatever comes next." The town hall had cemented her path to Hawaii, not as an escape, but as a bold step toward a life where her worth was never questioned again. On a snowy January morning, as Harper and Ethan packed their Lakeside Heights home, Judith arrived unannounced, her face a mask of barely contained fury. "You're tearing my family apart," she accused, standing in their living room, her coat still dusted with snow. "Running off to Hawaii to play queen while you poison Ethan against us." Harper, exhausted by years of appeasement, felt a surge of defiance. "I'm not running, Judith. I'm choosing a life where I'm not diminished. Ethan's choosing it too." Ethan, unloading boxes nearby, stepped forward. "Mom, this is our decision. You've pushed Harper away for years. I won't let you do it anymore." Judith's eyes narrowed, and she delivered a final blow. "You'll fail out there, Harper. No degree, no real roots, you're nothing without this family's name." The words stung, but Harper's response was calm, lethal. "I built a $10 million company without your name. I don't need it to thrive." Judith stormed out, her parting shot a vow to cut Ethan off financially, a hollow threat, given Harper's wealth. In Kauai, Harper and Ethan settled into their oceanfront home, the island's serenity a stark contrast to Michigan's chaos. Narrative Edge's new hub flourished, attracting eco-conscious brands drawn to Harper's vision. One evening, as they watched the sunset, Harper reflected on her journey. "I thought I needed Judith's approval to feel whole," she told Ethan, her voice steady. "But the real lesson is this: your worth isn't tied to anyone's validation. It's in the life you build, the people you lift up, and the courage to walk away from what hurts you." Ethan squeezed her hand, his commitment now unwavering. The move to Hawaii wasn't just a new chapter, it was a declaration that Harper's spirit would never again be caged. Logging into Narrative Edge's social media platform, Harper went live, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop. "I'm Harper Evans," she began, her voice unwavering, "and I built a $10 million company from nothing, despite being called uneducated trash by those who should have lifted me up." She recounted her journey, Oak Ridge's grit, Noah's stand, Sophie and Lucas' loyalty, the town hall's triumph, each moment a defiance of doubt. If you're stuck in a place where your worth is questioned, hear this: you are enough. Break free. Set boundaries. Build a life that honors you. Her words crackled with urgency, a challenge to viewers worldwide. Share your story below. Who's holding you back? What's your first step to freedom? As the live stream ended, comments flooded in, stories of resilience, vows to walk away from toxicity. Harper's call sparked a movement, her courage a lighthouse for others to claim their own. Picture this, a glittering gala, chandeliers casting a golden glow, and me, Ava Thompson, standing in a designer gown, thinking I'd finally earned my place. Then, my mother-in-law, Margaret, drunk on champagne and venom, screams across the room, "You're illiterate garbage who trapped my son. Get out." The silence that followed was deafening. Every guest froze, forks mid-air, as her words sliced through my heart. That night, I didn't just walk out of her Shaker Heights mansion, I walked away from years of her insults and built a $15 million empire from the ashes of her cruelty. I'm Ava Thompson, and this is how I turned her hate into my beachfront paradise in Malibu. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll see how I traded her venom for victory, and you'll want to share this story with everyone you know. Drop your city in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to someone who tried to tear you down. I grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, in a trailer home that rattled in the wind, where my parents worked 16-hour days just to keep the lights on. Dad hauled steel at the mill, Mom scrubbed offices till her hands cracked, but they taught me one thing: hustle is worth more than handouts. At 16, I was selling custom t-shirts at school, scraping together $50 a week from my lunch money. It wasn't much, but it lit a fire in me, a fire that no one, not even Margaret's icy glares, could extinguish. When I met Noah, my high school sweetheart, in biology class, he saw me, not the girl in thrift store jeans. He was from Shaker Heights, born into wealth, but he believed in my dreams even when his mother sneered, "Your father's a factory worker," like it was a crime. That was just the beginning of her war against me, a war I didn't know I'd have to fight for 7 years. But here's the kicker: every jab she threw made me stronger, and every doubt she planted pushed me to build StorySpark, a company that signed Nike and changed marketing forever. This video isn't just my story, it's a battle cry for anyone who's been called less than. Comment below, have you ever been underestimated? Let's start this journey together. I grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, where the winters were as harsh as the whispers of a small town that never lets you forget where you came from. Our trailer home was a patchwork of dreams and desperation, tucked behind a sagging chain-link fence. The walls were so thin you could hear the neighbors' fights, and the air always carried the faint sting of bleach from Mom's cleaning supplies. Dad worked the graveyard shift at the steel mill, his hands calloused and his eyes heavy with exhaustion, while Mom scrubbed corporate offices in Cleveland until dawn, her knees bruised but her pride unbroken. They poured every dime into keeping me fed and clothed, but new sneakers or trendy backpacks, those were luxuries we couldn't touch. Instead, I learned to make do, stitching patches onto jeans and turning hand-me-downs into something I could wear with my head high. That grit, it's what shaped me, long before I knew it would carry me to a $15 million empire. At 16, I discovered a spark that changed everything. I'd always been restless, doodling designs in the margins of my math notebook, dreaming of a life bigger than Mansfield's rusted factories. One day, I borrowed Mom's sewing kit and started making custom t-shirts, painting bold slogans like "Rise Up" and "Fearless" with cheap fabric dye. I sold them at school, sneaking into the cafeteria with a backpack stuffed full, trading shirts for crumpled dollar bills. $50 a week wasn't much, but to me, it was freedom, a taste of what I could build if I didn't quit. Kids started wearing my shirts to football games, and for the first time, I felt seen, not as the trailer park girl, but as someone with something to say. But Mansfield wasn't kind to dreamers. Classmates snickered, calling my shirts poor girl crafts, and teachers warned me to focus on realistic goals. I ignored them, but the sting lingered, fueling a quiet fire to prove them wrong. Then came Noah Bennett, the boy who turned my world upside down. It was junior year, biology class, and I was dreading group projects. Nobody wanted to pair with the girl who smelled faintly of thrift store detergent. When Mr. Larson called out, Ava Thompson and Noah Bennett, I braced for disappointment. Noah was Shaker Heights royalty, wavy dark hair, a BMW parked in the student lot, and a smile that could charm anyone. I expected him to roll his eyes, but instead, he slid into the seat next to me and said, "You're the t-shirt girl, right? Those designs are legit." I froze, my cheeks burning. No one from his world had ever noticed me, let alone called my work legit. We were opposites. He grew up with ski trips and private tutors. I grew up counting quarters for laundry, but something clicked. He was patient when I fumbled through lab notes, and I was fearless when we had to dissect frogs. Our late-night study sessions turned into talks about dreams, his to break free from his family's expectations, mine to build something no one could take away. Noah's world was a different kind of battlefield. The first time I visited his Shaker Heights home, I felt like an intruder. Their mansion sprawled across a manicured lawn, with marble floors and a foyer bigger than our trailer. Margaret Bennett greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her voice dripping with judgment. "Ava, how quaint that your father works at the mill." Her words were a blade, sharp and deliberate, meant to remind me I didn't belong. Noah's father, William, was kinder, asking about my t-shirts with genuine curiosity, but Margaret's presence loomed like a storm cloud. She'd interrupt to boast about Noah's Ivy League future, her gaze flicking to me as if I were a temporary distraction. Noah squeezed my hand under the table, his silent promise that he saw me differently. But even then, I sensed the war ahead, a war not just with Margaret, but with a world that measured worth by bank accounts and diplomas. Our love grew in stolen moments, milkshakes at the diner where Mom sometimes waitressed, stargazing in his beat-up pickup to escape his mother's watchful eye. Noah never cared that I couldn't afford prom dresses or college applications. "You're going to change the world, Ava," he'd say, his voice steady with a belief I hadn't yet found in myself. But Margaret's shadow stretched longer as we got closer. At a family barbecue, she cornered me by the pool, her voice low and cutting. "Noah deserves someone who can keep up with his future, not hold him back." I swallowed hard, my fists clenched, but I didn't reply. I couldn't, not yet. Instead, I poured that pain into my hustle, sketching new designs late into the night, vowing to build a life where no one could make me feel small again. That promise, born in the ashes of her words, would lead me to Story Spark, and to a showdown that would change everything. Want to know how I turned that pain into power? Keep watching, and let me know in the comments, what's the first dream you ever chased?